Marcus Reed's workshop aboard the Meridian looked like a tornado had hit an electronics store, and then apologized by organizing everything into piles of controlled chaos. Alien circuit boards hung from magnetic strips alongside human multimeters, while half-disassembled plasma rifles shared bench space with coffee cups that had achieved sentience through prolonged neglect. The air hummed with the white noise of a dozen different power sources, creating a technological symphony that Marcus found more soothing than any meditation app. "Another satisfied customer," he muttered, putting the finishing touches on a Calarian data pad that had been fried by an electromagnetic pulse. The device chirped happily as it powered up, displaying text in the flowing script that looked like someone had taught cursive to a lightning bolt. The workshop's main door chimed, and Marcus looked up to see something that made him temporarily forget how to operate his own nervous system. The woman standing in his doorway was tall enough to make basketball players feel inadequate, with skin that shifted between deep blue and silver, depending on how the light hit it. Her hair fell in midnight waves past shoulders that could probably bench press a shuttle, and her eyes were the color of Arctic ice with flecks of gold that seemed to move like living things. "You are the human engineer," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested vocal cords designed by someone with a better understanding of acoustics than evolution typically provided. "Marcus Reed." "That's me," Marcus replied, proud that he managed to keep his voice mostly steady. "Though most people just call me the guy who can fix things that shouldn't be fixable. What can I do for you, miss?" "Lyra Vexhai, 3rd Battalion Zephyrian Defense Corps." She stepped into the workshop, and Marcus couldn't help but notice that she moved with the kind of fluid grace that suggested violence could erupt from stillness at any moment. "I require your expertise with damaged equipment." She lifted something from behind her back, and Marcus felt his engineer's curiosity override his nervous system's protests about the intimidating alien woman. The object she carried was clearly armor, but unlike anything in his considerable experience. The chest piece was a work of art that happened to also be military hardware, its surface covered in crystalline matrices that caught the workshop's light and threw it back in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Zephyrian bioarmor," Marcus breathed, his hands automatically reaching for his scanner before he caught himself. "I've heard about this stuff but never seen it up close. The integration with your nervous system is supposed to be incredible." "It is also supposed to keep me alive," Lyra said dryly. "Currently, it is performing that function with less reliability than I would prefer." Marcus activated his workbench's holographic display and gestured for her to set the armor down. The moment it touched the surface, his sensors went haywire, displaying readings that made his equipment question its own existence. "Okay, that's not normal," he said, frowning at the data stream. "Your armor is putting out energy signatures I've never seen before. It's almost like it's alive," Lyra finished. "Because it is. Zephyrian armor is not manufactured in the traditional sense. It is grown, nurtured, and bonded to its wearer through a process that your species would probably find disturbing." Marcus looked up from his scanner, eyebrows raised. "I once fixed a Vraxian torture device that achieved consciousness and started writing poetry. My threshold for disturbing is pretty high." For the first time since entering his workshop, Lyra's expression shifted into something that might have been amusement. "The armor forms neural connections with the wearer's nervous system. It learns to anticipate our needs, responds to our emotional states, and adapts its protective functions accordingly. So it's like having a really paranoid friend who happens to be made of advanced military hardware," Marcus said, running his hands over the armor's surface. The crystalline matrices felt warm to the touch, and he could swear he felt a faint pulse, like a heartbeat made of electricity. "That is not an entirely inaccurate description," Lyra admitted. "The problem is that my armor was damaged in our recent engagement with pirates. The neural pathways are disrupted, and the biocrystalline matrices are operating at only 60% efficiency. Marcus whistled low. And you can't just take it off and let me work on it. Lyra's expression grew serious. The armor cannot be fully removed without causing severe neurological damage. The neural threads extend beneath the skin, intertwining with my nervous system. To disconnect completely would be inadvisable. So you're telling me I need to repair a living piece of technology while it's still connected to your body, Marcus said, the full scope of the challenge beginning to dawn on him. That's either the most interesting project I've ever taken on, or a really good way to accidentally commit alien manslaughter. I have been told you are the best non-Zephyrian engineer in this sector, Lyra said. I am hoping that reputation is well-founded. Marcus looked at the armor, then at Lyra, then back at the armor. His common sense was having a heated argument with his professional pride, and pride was winning by a significant margin. All right, he said finally, but I'm going to need you to walk me through this step by step. One wrong move and I could fry your nervous system, and that would really ruin both our days. Lyra nodded, and for just a moment Marcus caught a glimpse of something vulnerable beneath her warrior's facade. I understand the risks, Marcus read, but I also understand that without functional armor, I am of little use to my people. I am willing to trust you with my life. No pressure there, Marcus muttered, reaching for his finest precision tools. The next morning brought the kind of technical challenge that made Marcus question his life choices, while simultaneously making him more excited than a kid in a candy store with unlimited credit. Lyra had returned wearing the damaged armor, and the sight of her in the bio-integrated gear was like watching technology and biology perform an intricate dance that evolution had never quite figured out. The neural interface connections are here, and here, Lyra said, indicating points along her collarbone and upper chest where the armor seemed to disappear beneath her skin. The primary processing matrix is located directly over my heart, which means any work on the core systems will require close proximity, Marcus finished, trying to keep his voice professional while his brain helpfully reminded him that this meant working inches away from a stunningly attractive alien woman. Right, I'll try to keep my hands to myself. Your hands will need to be everywhere, Lyra said matter-of-factly, apparently missing the innuendo entirely. The biocrystalline matrices respond to neural impulses, but they also react to electromagnetic fields generated by living beings. Your proximity will affect their behavior. Marcus activated his diagnostic scanner and immediately regretted it. The readings were so complex they looked like someone had fed a quantum physics textbook through a blender and then tried to reassemble it in a language that didn't exist yet. Okay, I'm seeing damage to the primary neural pathways, crystalline fractures in the power distribution network, and what appears to be a complete failure of the emotional regulation subsystem, he said, grateful to have something technical to focus on. How exactly does emotional regulation work in Zephyrian armor? The armor learns to interpret and respond to our emotional states, Lyra explained, settling onto the examination table with fluid grace. Fear triggers defensive protocols, anger enhances offensive capabilities, and calm allows for optimal energy distribution. Currently, my armor is interpreting all emotional input as existential crisis. Well, that explains why it's been putting out readings that look like a panic attack translated into mathematics, Marcus said, carefully adjusting his tools. I'm going to need to access the neural interface ports directly. This is going to feel strange. He positioned his molecular probe near the first interface point, a crystalline node that pulsed with soft blue light just below Lyra's collarbone. The moment the probe made contact, both of them froze. Did you feel that? Marcus asked, his voice slightly strained. The armor is attempting to establish a connection with you, Lyra said, her breathing becoming more measured. It interprets your neural activity as a potential secondary user. You should ignore any sensations that seem unusual. Marcus tried to focus on the technical readouts, but ignoring unusual sensations was becoming increasingly difficult as the armor's biomatrices began resonating with his presence. He could feel something that wasn't quite touch, wasn't quite electricity, flowing between them through the interface. "This is definitely not covered in any of my engineering manuals," he muttered, fine-tuning the molecular alignment of a fractured crystal. "How are you doing over there?" "The armor is responding well to your touch," Lyra said, and there was something in her voice that made Marcus's hands momentarily unsteady. "The neural pathways are stabilizing. Please, continue." Marcus worked in focused silence, his hands moving with practiced precision over the intricate biotechnology. Every adjustment seemed to create ripples of response through the armor, and by extension, through Lyra herself. He could see her pulse quickening in the faint glow of the neural interfaces, could sense her breathing synchronizing with his own movements. "The emotional regulation system is more damaged than I initially thought," he said, repositioning himself to access a cluster of interfaces near her heart. "I'm going to need to recalibrate the entire emotional response matrix. That means I'll need to trigger specific emotional states while I work." "What kind of emotional states?" Lyra asked, and Marcus could hear something almost like nervousness in her voice. "Trust, primarily. The armor needs to learn to recognize and respond to trust signals." Marcus paused in his work, looking up to meet her alien eyes. "Lyra, this is going to require you to completely lower your mental defenses. The armor will interpret any resistance as a threat response." For a long moment, they looked at each other across the small space of the examination table. Marcus could see the internal struggle playing out in Lyra's expression, the warrior's instinct to maintain control warring with her need for functional armor. "I have never allowed anyone access to my neural interface systems," she said quietly. "Among my people, such intimacy is reserved for people you trust completely," Marcus finished. "I understand. If you're not comfortable with this, we can find another way." Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she reached up and placed her hand over his where it rested on the armor's surface. The contact sent a jolt through both of them, and every crystal matrix in the chest piece flared with brilliant light. "Continue, human," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Don't stop." The repair work had evolved into something that transcended mere engineering, becoming a delicate dance of trust and technology that required Marcus to recalibrate not just Lyra's armor, but his entire understanding of what it meant to fix something that was part machine, part living organism, and entirely beyond his previous experience. The biocrystalline matrices responded to his touch like a musical instrument, each adjustment creating harmonics that resonated through both the armor and Lyra herself. "The core processing unit is the most critical component," Lyra explained, her voice carrying a breathless quality that had nothing to do with physical exertion. "It sits directly over my heart and regulates all other systems. If it fails completely, you die," Marcus finished grimly, studying the readings from his scanner. The core unit was a masterpiece of bioengineering that made human technology look like stone tools, but it was also showing signs of cascade failure that could prove fatal. "Okay, this is going to require some creative problem-solving." He repositioned himself on the stool beside the examination table, bringing himself close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from Lyra's skin. The core processing unit was visible through the armor's transparent aluminum plating, a crystalline structure that pulsed with the rhythm of her heartbeat and glowed with an internal light that seemed to respond to her emotional state. "I need to access the neural pathways directly," Marcus said, his hands hovering over the interface points. "This is going to feel intense." "I understand," Lyra whispered, her eyes closing as she prepared herself for the deeper connection. Marcus activated his neural interface probe and carefully made contact with the first pathway. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Suddenly, he could feel Lyra's heartbeat as if it were his own, could sense the flow of bioelectrical energy through her nervous system like a river of liquid starlight. The armor was no longer just a piece of equipment. It was a living extension of her body that interpreted his presence as part of her own neural network. "Marcus," Lyra breathed, her hands gripping the edges of the examination table. "I can feel your thoughts, your focus, your determination. It's incredible." "I can feel you too," he admitted, his voice strained with concentration. "Your strength, your courage, and something else, something you're afraid to admit." The armor's biomatrices pulsed brighter as their neural patterns synchronized, creating a feedback loop that amplified their connection exponentially. Marcus found himself experiencing fragments of Lyra's memories, battles fought in the void between stars, the loneliness of a warrior's life, the weight of responsibility that came with protecting others. In return, she experienced his dedication to his craft, his genuine care for the beings he helped, and his growing fascination. "The emotional regulation system is responding to our connection," Marcus said, watching as the reading stabilized across multiple displays. "Your armor is learning to recognize me as a trusted presence." "More than trusted," Lyra said softly, opening her eyes to look at him with an intensity that made his breath catch. "Marcus, what we are sharing, among my people this level of neural intimacy is reserved for bonded mates," he finished, the knowledge flowing to him through their shared connection. "I know, I can feel what it means to you." A power surge through the core processing unit made Lyra gasp, her back arching as the damaged systems struggled to integrate with the repair protocols. Marcus instinctively reached out to steady her, his hands framing her face as he poured his concentration into stabilizing the failing matrices. "Stay with me," he urged, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones as the armor's glow intensified around them. "I've got you, just let me fix this." "Don't stop," Lyra whispered, her hands coming up to cover his. "Please, Marcus, don't stop." The double meaning was unmistakable, and Marcus felt his resolve wavering as their connection deepened beyond anything he had imagined possible. The armor was responding to their emotional bond, its biomatrices adapting and evolving to accommodate not just Lyra's neural patterns, but his as well. "The system is integrating," he said in wonder, watching as the crystalline structures began to resonate in perfect harmony. "Lyra, your armor is treating me like a secondary user. It's adapting to both our neural signatures simultaneously." "Is that bad?" she asked, though the expression on her face suggested she already knew the answer. "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "But I do know that if I don't complete the repair sequence in the next few minutes, the cascade failure will restart and we'll lose everything." Lyra nodded, her trust in him absolute despite the uncertainty of what their connection might mean. "Then finish it, Marcus. Complete the bond." Marcus took a deep breath and activated the final repair protocols, pouring everything he had into the delicate task of rewiring an alien nervous system, while his own seemed to be permanently entangled with hers. The workshop filled with brilliant light as the armor's systems came online one by one, each component singing in perfect harmony with both their neural patterns. When the light finally faded, they found themselves still connected, still sharing thoughts and sensations through technology that had evolved beyond its original parameters to accommodate something neither of them had expected to find. The final integration sequence required Marcus to synchronize his neural patterns completely with Lyra's bioarmor, a process that would either result in perfect harmony or catastrophic failure with no middle ground for error. His hands moved over the core processing unit with surgical precision, each adjustment creating cascades of bioelectrical energy that flowed between them like visible music. "The neural pathways are accepting the new configuration," Marcus said, his voice tight with concentration. "But I need you to open your mind completely. No barriers, no defenses. The armor has to recognize me as part of your system. That level of connection." Lyra began, then stopped, her violet eyes searching his face. "Marcus, if we do this, there may be no going back." Zephyrian bioarmor bonds are permanent. You would become part of me, and I part of you, in ways that transcend physical intimacy. I understand the risks, Marcus said, though he wasn't entirely sure he understood anything anymore beyond the desperate need to save her life, and the growing certainty that she had become essential to his own existence in ways he couldn't begin to articulate. The core processing unit pulsed with increasing instability, its crystalline matrices flickering between brilliant blue and dangerous red. Marcus could feel the countdown in his bones, minutes, maybe less, before cascade failure made the repair impossible. "Do it," Lyra whispered, her hands covering his where they rested on the armor's surface. "I trust you, Marcus Reed, completely." Marcus activated the final integration protocol and felt his consciousness expand beyond the boundaries of his own skull, flowing through biotechnological pathways into direct contact with Lyra's mind and soul. The sensation was indescribable, like touching starlight, like becoming part of a symphony written in languages that predated speech. He experienced her memories as his own. The day she first bonded with her armor, the terror and exhilaration of her first battle, the long nights spent staring at alien stars and wondering if she would ever find someone who could understand the weight of her responsibilities. In return, Lyra experienced Marcus's world through his eyes, his childhood fascination with taking things apart to see how they worked, the quiet satisfaction of fixing problems that others deemed impossible, the loneliness of being the only human in a dozen systems who could bridge the gap between species through technology. She felt his growing love for her not as words or gestures, but as a fundamental truth written into his neural patterns. "The integration is complete," Marcus said wonderingly, watching as the armor systems settled into perfect equilibrium. "But it's not just your armor anymore. It's recognizing both our neural signatures as primary users." Lyra sat up slowly, marveling at the smooth response of her bioarmor as it adapted to her movements with newfound precision. But more than that, she could feel Marcus's presence in her mind like a warm presence, his thoughts and emotions accessible to her through their technological bond. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked, his hands still resting on her shoulders as if afraid to break their connection. "Complete," Lyra said simply. "For the first time in my life, I feel complete. The armor is no longer just a tool or a protection. It's a bridge between us." Marcus could feel the truth of her words through their bond, could sense the way her bioarmor had evolved to accommodate not just her needs, but his presence in her life. The technology had adapted beyond its original parameters, creating something unprecedented, a symbiotic relationship that included both of them. "What happens now?" he asked, voicing the question that had been building in both their minds. "Now," Lyra said, her hand coming up to cup his cheek, "we figure out how to explain to two different species that their best engineer and one of their finest warriors have become permanently linked through alien biotechnology and are probably going to cause diplomatic incidents wherever they go." Marcus laughed, the sound carrying harmonics that the armor translated and amplified until it seemed to fill the workshop with music. "When you put it like that, it sounds like just another day at the office." "Marcus," Lyra said seriously, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of her perfectly functioning bioarmor, "what we have created here, it is unprecedented. My people will want to study it, your people will want to understand it, and everyone will want to know if it can be replicated." "Let them study," Marcus said, pulling her closer as the armor's biomatrices pulsed in rhythm with both their heartbeats. "What we have isn't something that can be manufactured or replicated. It's something that grew out of trust, understanding, and the willingness to be vulnerable with someone from an entirely different world." Lyra smiled, and through their bond Marcus could feel her joy as a physical sensation, warm and bright and absolutely perfect. "You realize this means you're stuck with me now. The neural integration is permanent. Wherever I go, you'll be part of me." "Funny thing about that," Marcus said, his own smile matching hers. "I was just thinking that Wherever you go sounds like exactly where I want to be. The bioarmor pulsed once more, a gentle acknowledgement from the technology that had brought them together. In the weeks to come, they would face questions, investigations, and the challenges of being the first documented case of successful human-Zephyrian neural bonding. But in that moment, surrounded by the gentle hum of perfectly functioning alien technology and the warmth of a connection that transcended species, they were simply two beings who had found something extraordinary in the act of healing what was broken. Outside the workshop, the Meridian continued its